Hi, thanks for watching my lampshade building video. The lamp on the left, the shade did not go with that lamp. The original was the dimensions of the one I'm building in the video, but I couldn't find anything online as the old shade was pretty beat up and I couldn't use it as a template. So this video is going to show you how to make one from scratch if you've got the rings and the dimensions of the lampshade that you want to make. The first thing that you want to do is determine the height of the shade, and if you've got the rings from the old one, you want to measure the diameter of those. The top ring of my lamp is 15 inches in diameter, and the bottom ring is 18 inches. There goes my dog. Because the rings are different diameters and the lampshade has a taper, it's kind of important that you measure your template and your material to make it properly, because those two arcs can make it pretty complicated. So I drew a little diagram about how your lampshade material is actually the part of two arcs that are created by lengths of two different strings, basically. So that's how I did it. So I wrote a Python program to pretty much allow you to make the measurements for any lampshade that's a tapered lampshade. For a drum shade you don't need that, because you could just use a rectangular piece of material, but for a tapered shade it's pretty important to have all the measurements properly. I wanted something pretty thick as the underlayment for the shade, but all I could find with the dimensions large enough was this butcher paper I got off of Amazon. So I actually doubled it up and I glued two thicknesses of it together with some Mod Podge, and it didn't really turn out quite as well as I wanted it to, as you're going to see here in just a second. The material was so thin, and with the moisture from the Mod Podge I got all these creases. I tried to roll them out, but that didn't quite work. However, I was going to be covering it with material, so I decided to just go ahead, because once it set, it was pretty stiff. So I just, as it was setting up, I just kept rolling it, and you can see the creases in there, but you're not even going to notice them in the final product, so I didn't really worry about it too much. Okay, you need two arcs, and so what I did was I took a string and attached it to a microphone stand. One was, I think, 109, one was 131. And I basically just traced it on my piece of paper with the magic marker that I put a little hole in, and once I got that on there, I verified the length with my measuring tape, and then marked the leading edge, as you can see with the little red arrows. That's where the beginning of my lampshade material is. Then, to make sure the arc was the right length, I just taped a little piece of tape on each ring and rolled it along my drawn line, and that would show me where the end of it was. Then I cut the paper a few inches extra on every side, because I wanted to have some margin of error. And so I needed a piece of material minimum 24.5 by a little over 56. So I probably did it about 28 by 60. Then I took the burlap and glued it to the paper, with the lines drawn on the opposite side, because you're going to need those later. And what I did was, the burlap was stretching as I was attaching with the Mod Podge, so I just kind of stretched it to try to get it as vertical as possible as far as the lines on it went. It turned out, actually the irregularity of it makes it kind of cool, but you got to be careful. You couldn't do a striped material or something with a pattern you wanted to match the rings with a tapered shade. It just won't work. So try to pick something that has like either a random pattern or a solid or just a textured. So there, after we glued it, left it overnight, cut it, and then where your top and bottom edge are, I took some bias tape. That was all I could find, was this double stuff, which was kind of a pain. And then I glued it to the top and bottom edge. In hindsight, just glue the top edge, because you'll see in a few minutes why I didn't want to do that. Okay, so once I got the top edge glued with the tacky glue, I let everything set up overnight, because I didn't want it peeling off, and then trim the material to the edge of the bias strip. and then you're going to want to put a piece of bias strip on the leading edge, which is going to be the start of where you start wrapping it around the rings. Okay, so just 2 pieces of bias tape. Don't put it on the bottom yet. Okay, and then once you get your bias tape there, you can roll your ring along it, and then basically just trim the bias tape right where you've done the entire diameter of the ring. Okay, so here we got the bias tape attached on the top. That's the trailing edge. You want to leave a couple inches extra there. Okay, because you got to roll this thing around, I made a little piece of cardboard that I attached to the top ring so that I could attach my material on the top and roll it along without the whole thing collapsing, because it is pretty flimsy with just that material and paper. So you'll see here in just a second, I took the ring and just traced it on a piece of cardboard. Then I took some painter's tape and just attached it to it, so I had a nice little cylinder that I could use to roll the material in. So here we go. We're going to start attaching the leading edge of the material. Just put some tacky glue right in the middle of the bias tape, and you start on your ring and put your ring basically right in the middle, and you're going to take some folder clips and just start doing a couple inches at a time. Try to have enough folder clips to do the entire ring. I didn't have enough, so I was doing them about every 2 to 3 inches. And as I did it, and as it was setting up, I'd move the clips about a ½ an inch or so as it was setting. I probably did that for a few hours, and it actually turned out really nice doing it that way. I didn't have any creases from the clips. But if you had enough clips to do the whole thing, it would probably turn out nice too. Okay, where the end of the material glues over, peel the white paper back so you just have some bare burlap there, and that'll give you a real nice finish line that's not so drastic when you do that. So we got the top ring done here. I let that set. Now we're going to glue the trailing edge onto the drum, onto the shade. So what I did was I attached the bottom ring just temporarily with some clips, and try to get your dimension pretty standard with what your height is going to be, and then you want to trim your trailing edge to where the paper is even with the burlap, so you have about 1 inch overlap, and then leave that little inch at the bottom for your glue so it looks nice. And then once you do that, you put some tacky glue on the inside and then press it down. Pretty much do that from the inside because you can push it down against the table, and then you put stuff on it to keep it down. You can see my bottle of wine and my paint samples work pretty good, and I left that overnight. Now remember, your bottom ring is not permanently attached yet. Okay, and here's my seam glued. It turned out really, really nice. That burlap is really a great material because it kind of frays a little at the edges so you don't get a real drastic seam on it. But it turned out pretty cool, I think. Okay, now we are going to measure. Now that we have that seam done, we're going to kind of go around and temporarily attach the bottom ring at the height that we want. I wanted mine 22, but it turned out that 21.5 seemed to be a little bit better. My bias tape was a little bit off. So I don't know how, I was lucky enough to be able to peel the bias tape off, and then I went back and reattached it while measuring all the way around. So the center of the bias tape was at 21.5 inches because that's where my ring's going to go. Then I trimmed off that white extra paper to the edge of the bias tape and then started working on the ring. Just a few inches at a time like we did before. And as you're going along, measure the height of the shade with your ruler. Because it will, for some reason, there's just a little discrepancy in it, and I had to kind of keep moving it as I went along to get the exact right dimension. So there we are with the clips. I'd move the clips about every 15 or 20 minutes as it was setting up, and finally let it set overnight. And you know, where that trailing edge is, there's just a little bare piece of material, so it was a really nice little finish line where we did that. Okay. Then it dried, then I put it on the lamp. Turned out, I think the burlap really looks cool. They have all different colors of burlap, so if you want to do it, you could do it basically with any color coordination. Now, my original shade had this little piece of orange rug, it looks like, up the top. And I ended up putting it on, and I wasn't sure because the texture kind of contrasted with the burlap a little bit. But, you know, friends of mine who see it, they think it looks really cool. So I attached it, and it was too late to take it off, so I put it on. And I think when the light's on, it looks really cool. When the light's off, it doesn't. But you can see, that's with the light off, and then with the light on, you can see how it kind of gives a opaque. Here we go with the light. It kind of makes the top of the lamp opaque, which makes it a little more drastic. So I think it looks kind of cool. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my video, and I had a fun time making this lamp. I'm ready to make some more. Enjoy. If you have any questions, contact me. Bye.